Trade rumors everywhere, and Isaiah Collier's path to NBA viability is the most direct of any of the Jazz rookies. It's next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting networks. We are free and available on YouTube. Just subscribe and follow. And we have a free and daily newsletter for you as well at Locked On Daily, because we are free and available everywhere. That's what we do at Locked On, is give you your team every day for free. Woohoo! Today's show and today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Now's the perfect time to download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Here's what I got for you today. We'll do our Monday, as we always do, Trends Monday. I had some interesting thoughts about team building. I sat next to Nio Campbell at practice yesterday, and maybe that just made me really smart. And so I had some interesting comments about our thoughts about team building that I wanted to get into the show today. And then Isaiah Collier may have the most direct route to NBA viability. We're going to start, though, with trade rumors. John Collins is all over every trade rumor imaginable right now. So let's touch on that. By the way, happy Dr. Martin Luther King. Honor Dr. Martin Luther King, one of the great American heroes we've ever had. Take some time, read the letter from Birmingham jail. YouTube lets you hear a speech. Give some time today to the messages of Dr. King. They're super valuable today, as much as they ever were. Let's get to John Collins. You go into the internet right now and you search John Collins trade rumors, and you get everything from the Warriors are looking at John Collins. You get that the Chicago Bulls are possibly trading a Patrick Williams for John Collins. The hottest rumor has been Sacramento is being talked about in a Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles deal. I'm sure the key thing to the Jazz here is trying to garner some sort of a first-round draft pick. As I talked about on the last show, in the midst of not feeling great last Thursday and then not doing a show Friday to save my voice, I think it's going to be really interesting, and it's why I feel the trade market's so dead right now, is there's so many players available. With 7 teams making their players available right now, and there's so few teams that actually can go acquire a player, that I feel like it's a buyer's market, and that the buyers are going to hold out and be like, yeah, we'll give you Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles, but you're only getting seconds. And if you insist on the first, they're just going to wait and then decide to go see if they go get Kyle Kuzma or something else. I think it's going to be a very hard market by which to be able to get a first-round draft pick. If a team the Nets are supposedly hanging out wanting 2 first-round draft picks for Cam Johnson. Well, let's be clear. The Nets have already made 2 trades. If they could get 2 first-round draft picks for Cam Johnson right now, they would have done it. And the market, just to me, is not yielding quick movement, and it is not yielding just supply and demand, Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, a environment in which you're going to have a players or teams garnering like a bunch of first-round picks for a player. Now, if the Jazz can get anything for John Collins, considering they gave up literally nothing to get him, that's a great transactional move by the franchise. I'm kind of still a Kevin Huerter believer. He had a monster year coming off the handoffs of Domantas Sabonis 2 years ago and then got kind of lost in the shuffle in Sacramento. He's young enough that he might meet some timeline issues. At some point, we have to pay somebody. You'd have to, one of the reasons Sacramento will be getting off of him is they have to pay him at some point. I frankly wouldn't mind just Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles for John Collins, and you're suddenly taking, and you have a young shooting guard. You're trying to figure out what Kevin Huerter is in the league. Losing John Collins, I mean, these are all hard because John Collins is a great dude with super nice, good energy. I mean, if you go back to the Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton spat the other night, it's John Collins that has his arm around Isaiah Collier, kind of calming him down and getting those guys through that moment. So I think some of these are really difficult to consider the impact, but I also understand we're in a transactional league. And if you're not on the timeline and John's got a player's option next year, like I'm being human about it, personal, like seeing John around, like talking about a nice conversation with him the other day about everything that's going on. And so it's hard for me to sit here and talk about these things because to me, these guys are real. But from a transactional standpoint, if the Jazz can garner something, but the trade rumors are everywhere. The latest one had a Patrick Williams aspect to it that the Jazz were considering taking. That they're in again. These are all rumors, and everything's so clicky baity right now. That and frankly, AI generated, and it's really hard to know what's real or what's not. A Bleacher Report. And I think the answer is most of it's not real, frankly. But it was a Bleacher Report kind of trade proposal more than a trade rumor, had the Jazz taking the burden of the Patrick Williams contract off Chicago. Just an interesting game there. That's a little bit we've talked about. And I don't know if I think there's any viability of that, but just as a route of what you're doing in the trade market, I think is at least interesting in that what you're doing there is taking, and a little bit of Kevin Huerter also and Patrick Williams, you're either taking a young player that hasn't fully developed yet, or you're taking a young player who you want to clear the deck. They want to clear the deck off of his contract. Patrick Williams is someone the Bulls have been drafted fourth. They paid. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it hasn't come together, and they now are on the hook for a few more years of his deal, and maybe they're done, and you can profit off that. Kevin Huerter's one whose trajectory has kind of flattened out and dropped a little bit, and so Sacramento with DeRozan, Monk, Sabonis, and Fox, at least if Fox is still there, is probably reluctant to pay Kevin Huerter any more than they have to and any of the contract deals coming up, and so suddenly they need to get off of that. Contract deals, money is real right now in this league, and so where can the Jazz profit off of being able to take, which a little bit of the second draft theory here, but this is a little different. This is the player that either is about to get paid or has been paid that has some value, and you decide, we're willing to take that. Particularly like in the case of a Patrick Williams, who hasn't necessarily materialized, he's only getting paid $18 a year. And I know $18 a year sounds crazy, but $18 a year is less than what a starter gets in this league. So I would say if the Jazz could trade and get an $18 million a year for 3 years with Patrick Williams to see what you can find out, that's worth it. Kevin Huerter's $18 a year next year and then an unrestricted free agent. So it's the same concept on both these guys. They're right about the same number. And it makes it, and I think they're both kind of the same spot where a team doesn't feel like they're getting their value. They've got other big contracts. They've got other process. Can the Jazz use John Collins and his $26.5 million contract to go get some player of that sort, and you take a look at, and if you need to pay them moving forward, you probably can, because at some point you do have to pay people. So that trade rumors are going nuts. We're about 16, 17 days away from the trade deadline, and it feels really dead right now. And I keep trying to figure out why no deals have gotten done. And the only thing I can come up with right now is there are just so many players available, and it's such a buyer's market that the teams that are buying are just holding out and saying, we're not giving you a first-round pick, and everyone wants picks. And it makes me wonder whether the answer on this is not to go get a first-round pick, but to go get like a Patrick Williams, Kevin Huerter, existing player type who does have some money. We don't care about the money because we got to pay somebody at some point, and you go and make that kind of deal instead. All right, that's the latest on kind of that whole trade world. We'll keep keeping an eye on it all the time. Does Isaiah Collier suddenly shown to have the most direct route to viability in the NBA? I think so, and I'll tell you why next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Chevy. That's right, Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also located in Logan. The Chevy truck, the Silverado, and the Colorado, those are just Americana. They're just so beautifully made. There's nothing like a Chevy truck. And you add Murdoch into the mix. You've got 80-plus years in Utah of making sure that you get a no-regrets experience and making sure that you have a perfect experience. I'll never forget talking to Blake Murdoch during COVID when everyone was overcharging the vehicles and taking the extra $4,000 or $5,000. He's like, I'm just not going to the grocery store and I'm not going to church and seeing someone who we gouged in a time of crisis. And it tells you all you need to know about the Murdochs and the no regrets experience. They want to make sure that you have each and every day at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com, dlock09@gmail.com, so we can make sure you get your VIP experience you deserve as an everydayer. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today at Prize Picks and get at Locked On NBA, and regardless if you win or you lose, right now you get to add on a very special $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Basketball season's heating up. No better way to get into the real money action with watching your favorite players with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up 1,000 times your money. Think LeBron James is going off tonight. Think that Isaiah Collier is going off tonight. Think Zion Williamson, non-COVID illness, is going off tonight. Decide. Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. Play around. Look at the games. Look at the matchups. See who you think is going to do it. Does somebody allow a lot of transition and Ja Morant's going to get out and running? Look for whatever edge you think you can find and get your money fast when you win, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting. Now, the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to get to win to get the bonus. Prize Picks. Run your game. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Honor King today. Make sure you take some time. Go back and watch a speech. Understand what he was about. There's a reason we have the holiday. Take a moment or two and understand this man's mission and vision and what it can do for us today. He's truly one of the greats that exists in this world. Does Isaiah Collier have the most direct route to NBA viability of any of our first-round picks? So I'm watching practice yesterday, and Isaiah Collier obviously needs to shoot better. Like, that's the issue. And Isaiah Collier probably needs to finish at the rim better. So I went and talked to Keyonte and Isaiah after practice yesterday about rim finishing, what it takes. And, you know, the comment that Keyonte made is, yeah, that was the hardest transition. It's like you get to the basket and all of a sudden it closes so much more than ever before. And Collier is not terrible at the rim. He's at the 54th percentile, which is actually, I think, way better than what Keyonte was last year. And he gets out and fast break a lot. But you can see with some pretty regular circumstances in which he gets to the basket and suddenly it's closed on him. He's going to learn that. If you just look at, like, Keyonte last year was 59% at the rim. This year's at 70% at the rim. I think about the exact same amount of shots. Not a lot. In fact, you know, if there's something we would like more about Keyonte, it would be to him to get to the rim a little bit more. But that I think just happens. And I look at Isaiah Collier's game. The first thing that he can do that's really special. And actually, I'm going to give Nayo some credit because Nayo and I were sitting next to each other the other day. We were talking about it. Nayo's the one who kind of made me really think about this. Isaiah Collier can handle the speed of the NBA game immediately. He plays with a thrust and a pace, but he's comfortable with the speed. I'm watching Cody Williams and Kyle Filipowski, and they're overwhelmed by the speed. Cody's overwhelmed by the physicality. So if you take the two biggest jumps you make in the NBA, one is the speed and two is the physicality. Three is probably the length, and that length is still an issue for all of them. But Isaiah has answered the speed and he's answered the physicality. He's not bothered by either of those two things. So then you get into, okay, well, he's clearly a point guard. And he has a special skill in seeing the game and 9 assists a game. And his route now simply comes down to whether he can figure out how to shoot it well enough. So his route to viability in the NBA is that he has to become a 35% three-point shooter. An average, probably it's going to be 36% NBA three-point shooter. That if they kick it out to him and he's better than Ricky Rubio was. That he's just like, they don't guard him enough. They sag off him and he gets that three and he knocks it down just enough to make you pay. I don't think it's fair to ask him to become the 38, 39% off the bounce three-point shooter where they now have to alter their defense. I think it's going to be they sag off of you. They think you're the guy, the muck guy, the guy you drop off, and Isaiah Collier's got to show that he can knock that down at 35, 36%. That gets him to being an NBA viable starting point guard, maybe. Like, very viable. Like, if he suddenly is making, he's getting 8 threes a night, he's making 2 or 3 of them a night, and he's getting to the rim, and he's getting 9 assists, and he's doing, and 8-3 sounds like a lot, but I think if you're a point guard, you really, frankly, if you're a point guard in this league and you're not averaging 15 points a game, it's really almost hard to imagine, frankly, if I'm just being totally honest with you. You just have the ball in your hand so much. So I think that when you, now, like, you take a look at that's the route for Isaiah Collier. That's a big route. He's shooting 19.7%. He's shooting 35% overall. Like, that's a massive jump. Let me make sure that I'm not underestimating this at all, right? Like, okay. But that's the one thing he has to do. For Cody Williams, I look at Cody Williams right now, and I still love the skill set. He's got to gain 15 pounds this offseason, 8 pounds next offseason, and maybe 8 pounds this. That's hard. He literally has to transform his entire body. He is so frail. He gets bumped off his spot. And then once he gains this weight, he's got to figure out how to use it. I think he's got to tighten his handle, and he's got to fix his shot. And I think he has to learn how to play hard. Like, he's either so talented that it looks casual or it is casual. I still can't tell. But there's a lot, like the talent level underneath of all three of them, there's no question that Cody Williams has the most talent. But of the three of them, his route to viability is getting stronger, improving his shot, understanding the pace of the league, which I don't think he can handle, understand the physicality of the league as he gets stronger, and tightening his skills. That's a lot. It's going to take real time. It's possible, but it's a lot. And I think he can get stronger. I think he's got the natural skills to be able to handle a bunch of these things. So I think he really has the possibility of getting all these things done. But the route to it is going to be hard. So to me, I look at Isaiah Collier right now, and I look at Cody Williams, and you tell me, okay, which has a direct route to NBA viability right now that's better than Isaiah Collier's? Because I think he's proven he can play with the pace, play with the physicality, play the point guard position, do that, and he's got to learn how to shoot. Big, like maybe too big a hurdle, right? He's shooting 19% from three. Shooting 35% overall. Like, okay. For Kyle Filipowski, I'm really right where I was on draft night with him. I'm not sure what his defensive position is, and I'm not sure what his offensive position is right now. And his route to viability in the NBA, I'm actually I personally am having a hard time figuring out what it is. I'm pretty certain he's not going to be able to play center in the NBA. I think, but I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is just doesn't have enough length to protect the rim. But could be a pretty good 5-out center, which leads to the next thing on Filipowski, which is he really has to, I think, improve his shot. He's at 31% from three. There's some signs that the above the break three is coming. Right now, it's almost all corner threes. If you look at his shooting numbers, I think he's like 38% on corner threes, and he's like 14% on above the break threes. It's gotten a little better, so that's not as much as it was. But if he's going to be a stretch 5, and then you overcome his defensive lack of length, I know it's crazy, 7 feet, I'm talking about lack of length, but I think that's true, then his shot has to get better. Which is the same thing as Isaiah Collier, right? Okay, so we just kind of said the same thing. He has elite passing skills. He's physically met the match. I'm not sure he's got the speed of the game figured out on the offense or defensive side yet. He does have the physicality. He's been much better physically and prepared than I realized out of Duke. Super strong lower body. It's been really viable for him. He has... The reason he went 32nd in the draft with that kind of skill set is because he's just got some physical limitations that make it hard for him in the NBA, in that he's not super long for a 7-footer. He's not super athletic for a 7-footer. And so it's hard. Those all still exist. And everything else we've talked about on all of the other guys, on Isaiah Collier, the shooting, on the Cody Williams, the strength training, and are all items I think you can improve. I'm not sure that those aren't just some limitations that Kyle's going to have to figure out how to play around for his entire career. And if we're talking about most direct to NBA viability, that's hard to overcome. So I think Kyle's passing is elite. I think he can improve his shooting no differently. Isaiah. I'm not, like, he can't get longer. Like, his arms aren't getting longer, and I'm not sure he can get dramatically quicker. He can get smarter defensively. And so, yeah, if he adds the shot with his passing skills, with his ball handling skills, he probably becomes good enough offensively to overcome some of those other, and that would be his path to direct route to NBA viability, and that's not that far off of what we're talking about with Isaiah. But I do think somebody sitting here at the halfway mark of the NBA season, that the 29th pick out of USC has the most clear direct route to NBA viability of any of our rookies. Trends Monday is next. I'm gonna miss out on the team building aspect of today's show. We've run out of time on that. I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll talk to Will about it tonight because I think it's super interesting. I will share that with you tomorrow on Locked On Jazz. But first, Trends Monday. Who's hot? Who's not across the NBA? Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. It's the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And it makes the NBA and the NFL playoffs way more exciting from the first whistle to the final drive. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. The variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking at some extra excitement in the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this NFL playoff season unforgettable. With FanDuel.com, early lines on the 2 NFC championship games. The Eagles are a 5.5-point favorite at home, and the Chiefs are just a 1.5 favorite at home. Interesting. Utah Hockey Club is on the ice, I believe, tonight against Winnipeg. They are a underdog by 1.5. NBA. Tonight, the Jazz are at the Pelicans. Are we even still on the board? We are. We're an 11-point dog tonight. The Warriors are a 10-point dog in Boston, and Phoenix is a 7.5-point dog in Cleveland. Blowout day in the NBA tonight is what they're telling us is coming. It's all at FanDuel.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. We also have the brand new newsletter. It's at Locked On Daily. Please subscribe. Jump aboard. Raptors have caught me. Kings have caught me. It's bad stuff. Empty the noggin for you tomorrow exclusively on Locked On Daily and Locked On Jazz. Go subscribe today for free. Plus, you get Katie Heindel's national articles. You get Josh Lloyd's fantasy tips as well. It's all the #1 ultimate stop in your NBA newsletter. All right, let's do it. We always look at the trends Monday to see what's going on in the league and find it very interesting. At least I do. Thank you very much for joining me for it. The first thing we look at is how every team is doing over the last 10 days. And the second thing we look at is how everybody's doing in the last 2 weeks to see the more immediate. So over the last 10 games, the #1 team in the NBA, it's not even close, is the Oklahoma City Thunder that are plus 16. This gets really interesting. The next two teams are the Indiana Pacers and the Sacramento Kings. And the next one is the Denver Nuggets. So suddenly, Indiana and Sacramento have revitalized themselves in the middle of the season, and Denver, with Aaron Gordon coming back and everything else around them, seems to be maybe just fine. Boston is 5, Milwaukee is 6, teams that are really struggling. Washington is, this is just the effort being made right now is incredible. Washington is minus 17 per 100 possessions. Brooklyn is minus 15. Toronto is minus 11. Orlando doesn't mean to be doing this, but they're minus 9. Philadelphia doesn't mean to be doing this, but they're minus 7, have lost 8 of 10. The Jazz are 16th in the league, minus 1.1 over the last 10 games. Offensively, this is what gets scary, is the Thunder are the #1 offensive team the last 10 games in the NBA, and the Thunder are the #1 defensive team in the NBA the last 10 games. The #2 offensive team is just stunning to me. It's the Rockets. Cleveland's 3, Denver 4, and Minnesota, which was having a hard time scoring all year long, is suddenly the 5th best offensive team over the last 10 games. Worth keeping an eye on whether they have figured something out. That is a huge takeaway on our Trends Monday, is that the Minnesota Timberwolves, whose offense has been brutal, and particularly brutal late in games, is suddenly in the last 10 games got themselves to the 5th best offense in the NBA. Sacramento under Doug Christie is 6th. Let's look at New Orleans, by the way, who we played tonight, is 10th. Teams that can't score right now: Orlando with all their injuries, then Brooklyn, then Washington, then Charlotte, then Dallas without Luka and Kyrie, and then Portland. So no big surprises there. But it is interesting, obviously, if you take players off a team. Top 10 defenses: Thunder are 1, Clippers are 2. Clippers are playing pretty well. Indiana has played defense, which is unique. 4 is Boston, and Sacramento is 5 under Doug Christie. They've won 9 of 10. Detroit is 6th defensively over the last 10 games. Teams that are not defending: Washington, Toronto, the Lakers, that keeps showing up, the 76ers, the Nets, and the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau's Knicks, who have lost 6 of 10, are suddenly 25th in the league defensively over the last 10 games. So they have really stopped playing defense. All right, let's look over the last 2 weeks and see the micro version of this and see what we find out. I think we'll see that Sacramento and Indiana are hotter. We'll see if Minnesota's offense has all been recently. The hottest team in the league, it's not even close, is Oklahoma City. They're plus 22. The Clippers are next. In the last 2 weeks at plus 15, blew out the Lakers last night. Milwaukee plus 13. Indiana plus 12 and Houston plus 10. So Sacramento cooling down a tiny bit over the last 2 weeks, even though they're 5-1. The teams that are struggling the most over the last 2 weeks are Washington, Brooklyn. San Antonio, interestingly, has lost 5 of 6 and minus 13. Orlando, Toronto, and the Lakers are minus 8. JJ Redick, this isn't going as you thought. Offense, Oklahoma City is 1. Houston 2, so that stays. That's a huge takeaway in our Trends Monday, is that Houston is playing offense, which makes them a very viable contender, though I don't love their late game stuff. Milwaukee is 3, Memphis is 4, Denver is 5, and then there's Minnesota again at 6. Another big takeaway we've had today on Trends Monday is that Minnesota may have figured out how to play offense. The worst offensive teams in the league in the last 10 games are last 2 weeks are Orlando, Brooklyn, Washington, Dallas, Portland, and Utah. Take a bunch of guys out of your lineup. Guys get paid for a reason. This league is the lesson there. Clippers over the last 2 weeks are the #1 defensive team in the league. Oklahoma City is 2, Indiana is 3, Miami is 4, and Milwaukee is 5. Milwaukee never thought they would be. Milwaukee's the 3rd best offense and 5th best defense and won 7 of 8 recently, so keep an eye on that one. And then teams that are not defending: San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama is going to win Defensive Player of the Year, and yet over the last 2 weeks, they have the worst defense in the league. How is that possible? Washington, and then Cleveland, by the way, is 28th in the league defensively over the last 2 weeks. Keep an eye on it. Team's getting tired right now. It's drag time. Toronto, Lakers, Philadelphia, all there as well. That is your Trends Monday. Some interesting takeaways. It is the dog day kind of time of the season where teams are getting tired, so you begin to see that. Teams are letting go of the rope a little bit. But let's keep an eye on Minnesota and Houston's offenses and how good they are. Let's see if the Lakers' defense continues to struggle. That Cleveland thing's a little interesting. We'll keep an eye on that as well. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks so much for being a part of the program. Follow me on the socials at DLock09 on all of them. I started a bunch of restaurant reviews and other fun stuff, chocolate chip cookie reviews, all sorts of food stuff. We'll just have fun with that for you as well. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, DLock09, all of them. Please follow me. Yes, TikTok still exists. Sign up for the newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. And if you have not subscribed to the show, please do hit the bell button on YouTube. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA. Plus, check out Game Night every night after all the games on Locked On NBA.